Good day, folks. This is Scott Bell in for Mama Bell here on the Shalom Pod. Going to be talking about prepping and homesteading today. I have on our guest today is Sal Baldovinos, and he's in Texas, and he's going to talk a little bit about their journey into homesteading and so forth. Sal, thank you for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Scott.
Hey, first, give the listeners here just a little bit of brief history. Introduce yourself. Tell them a little bit about your story.
Sure. I was actually born in Central America in a small little country called Nicaragua. Mm-hmm. I moved to the States with my mom very early on. I was around 5 years old. We did some state hopping, and we ended up in the great state of Texas, where I've stayed for the majority of my life, so probably about 25 plus years. I was a graduate of the Art Institute, always loved doing technical things, design, web development. I parlayed that into a successful career, doing some freelance and also working for some of the largest agencies in Houston, having fun creating websites. I actually met my wife, Cassandra, at the Art Institute. We got married, and we have 6 beautiful children. And we've always had a desire to leave the city. And she grew up in a small town called Huntsville, just outside of Houston. Mm-hmm. And she has kind of the country heart as well as I did. And it's just always been on our minds to figure out how and when to leave the city, to get out of Dodge, essentially.
Fantastic.
I spent about 8 years in the Army, so that kind of gave me the wherewithal, I guess, to kind of have that prepper mindset, to always be on alert and just making sure that, you know, strategically you're in a good spot, but also having the strategy to survive. Mm-hmm. You know, whether that means food and you know, making sure that you're in a safe location, or you have a community around you that can also help support you and protect you.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And so with the 8 years in the Army, that gave you lots of basic training, so to speak, on how to survive in situations that most of us in the United States never think we're even going to experience or have yet to experience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of basic skills that, you know, just the average American really takes for granted. I mean, and we're not even just talking about survival. We're talking about if you have a flat tire, you know, if you don't have AAA, what do? You know, I can't imagine how many people out there, grown men and of course women as well, that can't change their own tire. Mm-hmm. Basic life skills, cooking, doing the laundry. I mean, there are people, sadly, out there that, you know, have become so accustomed to the catered lifestyle that we have that they don't truly understand the intricacy, the complexity of our systems. And I'm not talking even technical systems, just the fact that if the trucking industry stopped tomorrow, we would be in a huge downfall within 2 to 3 days. So, I mean, just having those basic skills to take care of yourself is essential to this way of life, really.
Yeah, very good. So you guys spent a couple years in the process of planning to get out of Dodge. Kind of tell us a little bit about that. So
you watch a lot of videos, you spend a lot of time on the internet, and thankfully in the city you have high-speed internet. So I was consuming as much information as I could, daydreaming as much as I could, looking at blogs and podcasts like yours and YouTube videos like Zach over at An American Homestead, Salinger's videos on raising chickens, all the different how-tos of this way of life. Mm-hmm. And so you spend all of that time essentially homestead college online. You spend all this time studying and preparing yourselves for that, and finally one day everything just kind of got set into motion. And this just truly illustrates the power that our Creator has, in that if you have the patience and you pray for it and you don't try to force things to happen, mm-hmm. it'll just come. And we got a phone call, actually we got an email from our landlord who we were renting the house from for about 4 years. We had no intention to leave. We were going to be there. Ironically, my in-laws lived right across the street from us at the time. And we got an email saying that they were going to sell the property. And they were actually selling the property to one of their close friends for 30-plus years who used to be their neighbor. Mm-hmm. So we were blessed to have 3 months, almost 90-plus days, to get our situation in order.
Wow.
And initially we thought, well, we're just going to rent for another year, work on our credit, see what happens in the next year. Mm-hmm. And then to stab at it, we had friends in our Torah community that we do home Bible school with that are realtors, and they pointed us in the right directions, gave us the right people to talk to, and everything just started falling in line. We got approved for a loan. We started looking for those 90 days at properties almost all across Texas. We had a pretty specific set of criteria in terms of how far we wanted to leave the city. Mm-hmm. We had friends and family that obviously lived in Houston. So we had a 2 to 5 hour border around Houston that we wanted to stay within, and everything again just kind of fell into place. The right property presented itself by chance, because it was actually on a list of 5 properties we were going to go look at in one day. Mm-hmm. It was the second property on the list, and nothing about it really stood out to us. It was, again, on the way to the bucket of gold at the end of the rainbow that we were wanting to go look at. We stopped by and we're like, the house is fine. There's nothing, exceptional about it. But my wife, having the design eye that she does, was able to see past a lot of things and, really got motivated. And then just walking around the property, we really saw the potential that there was there. We then went to the house that we wanted to look at, that we were really excited about, and just the whole ride there and the whole ride back, we couldn't stop talking about the house that we ended up purchasing. And again, everything just kind of fell into place. We thought we had a plan, and our creator just kind of laughs at us when we have a plan and says, "Nah, this is how we're going to do it." And we made an offer that same day, and everything just kind of, again, fell into place, and it was all by his doing.
Amen to that. We had when we moved out here to Apple Valley, and Apple Valley, if you're not familiar with California, is what they call the high desert, and it's semi-rural. It's not like living in the city like in LA or Orange County or something like that, but there are some areas here that are kind of rural, and it's very desert and very dry, kind of hard to homestead here, even though we are trying somewhat. But when we bought this house, we had looked at several properties out here, and then when one day we came out here and looked at this property, and we got here and we went and looked at another house and then came back, and we knew it was just, God was just pointing us in that direction. And we're praying for the same thing to happen when we move out from this area into some place that's a little bit greener and so forth. Tell us a little bit about your inspiration that started your homestead journey.
It goes back to a lot of the research, looking at Joel Salatin's videos, looking at An American Homestead, looking at permaculture videos. Back to Eden, I think, was really the catalyst that got us interested in building our own sustainable lifestyle, mm-hmm. and doing it in such a way that was natural, or as natural as we could do it. And we started off with a box garden in our backyard. A square-foot garden. We used the Back to Eden method, and we had some really good success with growing our own vegetables, and it was great to be able to come home from work. At the time, I worked at an office, mm-hmm. 2 hours of each day, but then you get to come home, and I do a lot of the cooking in the house, so I get to go to my backyard, pick off a few greens, and just go to town on making a delicious dinner for my family. Taking a look at these individual homesteads and blogs and videos that were being provided out there and have great content, it really just kind of stirs the pot of imagination and gets us thinking about how, taking ideas from these guys, and building our own thing. And again, it worked out that we were able to move out here. But there's so many resources out there that, you can Google anything nowadays and find what you're looking to do, be it a DIY project or, how to start a homestead or the best ways to start your homestead. What should you do first? The reality, though, is the day you step foot on your property and all the checks have been signed and all the paperwork has been filled out, you kind of just feel helpless at first because you're like, there's so much to do, and where do we start? All these years of studying and training and, kind of hands-on thing that we were doing, and you're kind of like, oh, wow, where do we start now? Because we're here. What?
Yeah, what next? What project is the first and foremost important for us to get started on, right?
Exactly.
Got you. Now, is any part of this journey, because you're a believer in the Messiah, Yeshua, and you believe that Yah's ways are the way that we should live, his law, and what part of that does that play in your guys' lifestyle, your decision to move to that self-sustaining lifestyle?
A lot of prayer, I think, was at the foundation of what we were doing, making sure that we weren't trying to flee to the mountains before it was our time. I know there's a lot of people who really want to do this lifestyle, who really want to get out of Dodge, so to speak, but either it's not their time or they're really trying to force it to happen, and they're met with frustration and roadblocks. The thing that I like to point to, that I know this was his creation, his doing, his plan, was the fact that there were no roadblocks for us to get here. There were bumps along the way, but there were no roadblocks. We got our credit to a place where it needed to be. We were able to secure a zero down USDA mortgage on the house and the land. And I know there's some people who would advocate that you're not supposed to go into debt to buy your homestead. You should be debt free. Unfortunately, the reality of most of our lives is you are in debt to whatever system is out there. If you can do it without getting into debt, more power to you. I applaud that effort. But I'm fortunate and blessed enough to have an income that allows me to sustain a work from home position, but also get this place up and running to a point that in a few years, hopefully, I won't be tied to a company, but I can work for myself on the land, but also bring in, extra side job.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And being self-sustaining in an economy that is, still volatile, hasn't come back since 2008, is an important place for us all to be. And I believe you're very blessed to still be working and still be in a position to where you can afford to get out and do this. I would love to go out and do it debt-free, and that would be my mindset and goal, but I don't know if, it would be the practical way, or to do it, so to speak. I'm praying for an owner, occupied piece of land where they're willing to carry the loan on the property and not to do it through a bank. If I have to do it, not, debt free, cash out and so forth. But we'll see what God does in the meantime when we get there. What plans do you have now for the property that you're moving into?
Well, one of the biggest things that we noticed about this property was the fact that the gentleman who built this house in the late 80s lived here all his life. So major upgrading had to be done. Let me step back. Not a lot of major upgrades, but a lot of updating. So the first day, we had a caravan of family and friends from our Shabbat group that joined us the first couple of days that we were here. And we had moving trucks outside. We had everyone's car outside, and everyone just attacked the house. And we pulled up the carpet. We painted the floors. We laid down our vinyl floors, updated the kitchen, a lot of the stuff to get us in a livable situation. Mm-hmm. So the first 2 or 3 weeks were incredibly stressful and incredibly tiring, to the point where 2 of my fingers, actually my middle finger and my ring finger on my right hand, went numb, because I had a pinched nerve in my neck, and we were just round the clock working. Thankfully, I was able to go see a chiropractor in town, and a lot of that has been remedied. But it was just a lot of hard work to get the house, the inside of the house, in a livable, appropriate way for our family to live. Mm-hmm. So the first few weeks, we were sleeping on the bed, on the floor. We had cement flooring because we pulled up all the carpet. It was just a mess. So our first goal was to get the inside of the house into a presentable state, company ready, if you will. Mm-hmm. And now that that's done for the majority of the home, painting and getting it all said and done, we're moving to the outside of the house. And the first thing that we needed to do was clear as much of the brush that was possible. Because the gentleman who lived here passed away about 2 or 3 years ago, and according to the neighbor stories, and if you move out to the country, you get to know everybody really well, and people are very friendly and easy to talk to and will tell you anything you need to know. But they told us, he was in a nursing home for at least 2 years, so then he passed away 2 years after that. So a good 4 years of the majority of the property, which we have 11.5 acres, is densely wooded. We're in East Texas, so the piney woods. Mm-hmm. So imagine living in a forest with about an acre around you that's been cleared out and was mowed on occasion. So the first plan of attack was to get the land cleared, to get all the underbrush so we can see what we're working with, how many trees are actually out here. Again, through his provision, through his means, I was able to meet a gentleman who needed a website, who needed marketing, who needed a logo, and we worked out a deal where he would actually clear our land in exchange for me working with him. So now I'm essentially his chief technology officer, kind of secret partner, working on his marketing, his logo, his website, all the things that he doesn't know how to do. And I'm a big proponent of trading skills, not bills. So when it came being able to find someone who would barter with us, it was a blessing, because it wasn't like we called 30 some odd people. My wife sent me an ad that she had found, and I called him up. I emailed him a few times. He came down here from North Texas. He actually made the drive. It was worth it to him at the time to come down here and have a discussion about doing a website, and we made that deal. So actually, as of like 2 weeks ago, he came out here and spent 48 hours worth of work, so about 5 business days worth of work, of just 12-hour days on the machine, getting it cleared, getting all of the brush taken care of, mulching all of what he could mulch, so that now we have things for our garden. So again, it was kind of a twofold process. Getting the land cleared, but also having the capability of mulching everything that we had so that we can use it for our Back to Eden garden. Mm-hmm. Now that part's done, we can actually look out of our backyard and see the very, very back of our property, and we still have a lot of trees. So the next step is finding someone who can clear the timber. And why not have your land give you back a little bit of money while you're at it? So we, again, found a person through no means of our own. God sent him our way, and he came out here, gave us a bid on all of the timber, and I handed him my business card, and I said, hey, by the way, I do websites. If you ever need anything or if you're ever interested, just let me know. There we go again. He needed a logo. He needed a website. He needed all these things done. So we attached that to the offer of the timber that he gave us, or the bid that he gave us for the timber. So another provision through him that, I didn't have to go searching and calling and getting a whole bunch of shady people showing up at our house over the next 2 weeks to figure out what was going to happen. We literally talked to one gentleman, and we talked to him, and everything fell in line. Amen. So clearing the land and getting it ready has been the biggest project since moving in. And he has yet to come out. We scheduled it, signed the contracts and everything a couple of days ago. So he'll be out here clearing the timber. Obviously, we're going to reinvest the income from that into building our chicken coops, building our pens for goats, getting it to a place where hopefully by spring or this time next year, we're going to be up and running, have a garden, have our chickens, have our goats for milk and meat ready to go, and really start that sustainable lifestyle in the next year or two.
Awesome. Awesome. So let me clarify something for me so that the listeners understand as well, is that so on him clearing the timber, you're actually selling and getting cash out of the deal that will help you get started on the rest of your homesteading stuff.
That is exactly correct.
Gotcha.
So he made us a substantial offer for the 11 acres that we have of timber. It's mutually beneficial because, I mean, he's going to make money on his end selling it to pulpwood and lumber yards. So it's a mutually beneficial transaction, right? So I get paid for what I own, which is on my property, and he gets paid when he takes it to get it cut. I'm not a lumber, so I may be using a logger. I may not be using the right terminology, but again, a mutually beneficial agreement. So, I mean, if you're on a homestead or if you're on property and you've just got trees and trees and trees, or maybe you have another resource, it's a great idea to just communicate that with people in town, communicate that with people in and around Facebook groups. If you have to, like, kind of beg, buy, barter in your Facebook feed, just ask them, hey, I've got 10 acres or I got 5 acres and it's all wooded. Would somebody come out here? There's a good chance that big lumber companies are not going to, but there are tons of companies, small mom and pop shops that will do 5, 10, 20 acre tracts, no question. They are happy to do that for you. It's not like I have 300 acres and, huge companies are offering me to pay for my kids' college. But,
yeah, exactly.
It the means to have the land work for me right off the bat so that I can reinvest it into the things that we need to do. And it's no cash out of my bank account. It's just going right back into the land.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so are you clearing the whole 11 acres so that the whole 11 acres is available for animals, gardens, farming, and so forth?
Yeah, we've been spending the last few days going out there and tagging trees that we want to keep because we do want to have some shade. We do want to make sure that there is shelter for the animals. But yes, we intend to lay down grass come this fall and winter so that, again, it's ready by next year. And should we have guineas and chickens and goats by this time next year or within the next 2 years, we'll have enough pasture land for them to roam around, have some sustainable food for themselves. But then we also have an acre across the street that we're getting cleared, and that's an additional acre for them to kind of be pastured on, to kind of cross fence over there. But then there's also the opportunity to invite friends and family to build a tiny house over there or to put their RV on that spot. So, we're not wanting to do this alone by any means, and I don't think that anyone who wants to do homesteading should have I'm going to do this all by myself, screw the world type mentality. It's just not going to work. You have to have community, and you have to get the people around you, because at the end of the day, should the proverbial poop hit the fan, you're going to need people around you to help you and to serve as protection, because who knows when and where the people from the urban centers are going to start branching out. And generally speaking, if you look at Katrina as an example, it took 3 to 7 days for them to start leaving New Orleans and migrating into smaller towns. Now, 30% of the population that entered Houston was from New Orleans. And the crime rate, 30% of the crime that happened came from New Orleans, that moved into Houston. And I grew up in a small suburb outside of Houston called Alief. And when you look at that statistic, that 30% crime rate went up almost night and day from when Katrina. That kind of gives you an inclination of what is coming your way or what could come your way if you're not far enough out of the city. And on average, it takes 3 days for a major metropolitan city to collapse. You shut down water, you shut down lights, you shut down food, there's going to be rioting in the streets on that third day.
And there's going to be people looking for food, water, and basic necessities of life to sustain themselves.
And for whatever reason, people in the city, including myself, people in the city believe or have this romantic notion that if I leave the city and I go to a rural property, they're going to have shelter, they're going to have food, they're going to have everything that I need to survive. When the reality is people out here are also struggling to survive. They're also struggling to make ends meet. You know, these small towns aren't meccas for rich people, right?
No, they're not.
Small towns are people who have actually moved out of the towns because there's no jobs, there's no economy, and they're having to go to the larger city. You know, so this mentality that, oh, if I just leave the city and hole up in a small town, I'm going to be safe. No, those people are going to close off their borders. They're going to make sure that no one can get in, and they're only going to deal with the people who are in the town. And that's what's going to happen, that people need to prepare themselves for. Hey, you can't just show up on the interstate, exit 65 and be in the small town USA, and they're going to greet you with open arms. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be, for those who are desperately in need and that are, say, nice and friendly, they'd be more than willing to help, I believe, most of the time. But if you come in there demanding, they're going to put up a front and a fight, so to speak, to protect their family and what they have worked hard for out there. And this all brings us to the next question. So what does the survival mentality mean to you and your family?
I mean, survival by definition is being able to withstand or prolong your death, right? You're trying to take steps that ensure your everyday survival. So just being aware of how we're going to get our food, how we're going to get our water, how we're going to get chores done when and if we have no power. Having the ability to do those things are ways of life that need to be continued, because if the power goes down, if everything just goes and we have no ability to support ourselves, we're not going to survive. Basic skills, going back to the very first things that we talked about, basic skills, how to live. My laptop, my skill by trade is not going to help me survive. I'm not going to be building websites for people when there's absolutely no internet and no power available. So learning new crafts and skills and trades are going to be essential. If you don't know how to change your battery, if you don't know how to change your tire, how are you going to get the tractor, or how are you going to get the vehicle up and running if those are means for your survival?
Yeah, totally understand and do that. So what advice do you have for people wanting to take these steps to make this type of a move?
First and foremost, you have to pray, really. You have to pray and be patient. Because if you are forcing it to happen, a lot of the times I feel that God will give you what you ask for in terms of, God, I really want to move, but He has a different plan for you, and you get to move, you get to do these things, and then you weren't prepared for it financially or mentally or physically. You weren't ready for that thing, but God gave it to you and said, here you go. It wasn't a part of my plan. It wasn't a part of my timing, but I'm going to give it to you, and, there you go. What happens, happens. So having that patience and having that perseverance to fight through the urges to make things happen, just be patient. And at the end of the day, if God's plan is not for you to leave the city, don't fight that, because there are plenty of people in the city that still need the gospel, that still need the ability to be connected in a city atmosphere, so that you can go to Starbucks or wherever it is that you get your coffee and have a conversation. Because out here, you're so busy working, you're so busy doing the things that you need to do. I go into town maybe once or twice a week and have a conversation, but again, through connections that we have outside the city, we were able to meet people and have people who are Torah observant in our town, and now we're starting to form a community around that.
Amen. And having that community, as you spoke about earlier, is very important. Whether you're in town or in a city environment or out there, in both places, it's very important for us to have community, to have like-minded believers as friends and mishpachah, our family. So when things do happen, say there's a major earthquake here in Southern California, we're going to need to help each other. If, the I-15's closed down and there's nothing come up here because it's been completely shattered, then we got to have people around us that can work with us and that we can help each other. I might have one item, somebody else may have another item or another skill, and we'll be able to help each other survive until things kind of, get back to normal and so forth. And that's real important. Any other things we'd like to encourage the people about before we close this out?
If you have the means, start saving. We actually have friends who are joining us in this journey. They just put their house on the market, and they're going to move to a small town about 30 minutes from us. The biggest piece of advice that I gave that family, our friend Scott, my ministry partner, was sell everything you can. Sell it all. If that means to you that you have a lump sum of cash on you for savings, then do it for that. But if you're planning to move, the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is sell everything you can that you don't need or isn't essential. We thought we did that. We thought we emptied our house and our attic back in Houston, and then we got here and we were like, what do we do with all this crap? We just have so much stuff that we didn't think to get rid of or sell off. So now it's sitting in a Connex in our backyard.
Exactly. And, when you go to some place like that, it's good to have those extra funds needed that you'll need for little things, because there's always something you didn't think of or plan about, right, in that process. And I'm sure you guys ran across a few of those things.
Oh, certainly. I mean, when we moved out here the first week, our septic system backed up, and we had no idea. I mean, we'd never lived on septic, or at least I haven't. In my life. So I was like, oh no, what do we do? How much is that going to cost? Thankfully, we had the home warranty in our purchase. So it wasn't a huge cost to us at all. And as it turns out, there's a tree out there, which is another reason we're getting rid of trees. There was a tree that the roots had gotten into one of the pipes and busted it and collapsed it. So, that was expenditure we weren't expecting. Just when you think you go to Lowe's or you go to Home Depot and you think you have enough nails, you have enough screws, you're going to have to make that hour round trip because, again, there's nothing near us other than a Walmart. You're going to have to make that hour round trip because you don't get everything that you think you do. If you're following plans for a chicken coop and it tells you need exactly 180 nails, you should just go ahead and double that. You're going to mess up, if you need X amount of 2x4s, go ahead and just maybe get 20% more, just in case.
Yeah. Because even if you don't use it, you got something to use for another project if you store it correctly. And then you save yourself the hassle of, oh gosh, I got to go take another hour to Lowe's and an hour back to get 2 more 2x4s.
Exactly.
To finish the coop or whatever the project is. Well, thank you, Sal, so much. Appreciate your time and you spending the time here on Shalom Pod today. And Lord bless you guys in your endeavors. And we hope to talk with you guys again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a blessed day.